Good evening, brothers. Good evening, brothers. Thank you for joining us. My name is Fred Miller. I'm with Cisco Systems, and we are here tonight. Our primary topic is elevating your conference experience, where we want to give you some insight and some nuggets on how you can present your best self at your next conference, and how you can present your most authentic self at the next conference. So today, that Lori Holloway will be leading our discussion. Lori is also an employee of Cisco Systems, and she's responsible for diversity and inclusive recruiting program. She educates hiring managers and recruiters on the power of diversity and how to engage, select, manage, and evaluate diverse talent. You being a member of Alpha Phi Alpha is representing this diverse talent. She's also responsible for increasing the visibility of diverse talent through our social justice programs at Cisco. She's also critical in our strategic and internal and external partners to implement promotional campaigns. So you're going to be in great hands tonight as she talks about how you can elevate your experience, how you can increase your brand, and how you can navigate your career as it relates to your conference experience. So without further ado, I'm going to turn you over and introduce you to Lori Holloway. Lori?
Thank you so much, Fred, for that warm welcome, and Alpha Phi Alpha for having me present to you today. I'm so excited to be here and share tips with you on how to maximize your conference experience. Timothy, if you could pull up the agenda, please. Right here, as Fred mentioned, we're going to talk about elevating your conference experience, but along with that, some best practices on the job search, branding, how to be really prepared when attending these conferences because they can get a little bit overwhelming. And lastly, I'll update you on the amazing programs that Cisco has and maybe take a few questions here and there. So Alphas, let's go ahead and dive in. Next slide, please. Conferences are a fantastic way to meet new people, build relationships, and learn new skills. And while they can be a lot of fun from the entertainment and after hours activities, you have to keep in mind that it's not a social gathering. You're there to achieve something. You want to think about why you're attending and what you hope to gain from the event. Are you looking to connect with new people or maybe better get to know some folks? Maybe you're looking to communicate your work or learn about new developments in your field. While you can do all of that at conferences, you want to set some goals so you can determine which conferences are best for you and worth your time, as well as how to allocate your time once you're there. Networking is a big part of conferencing, but it's not about connecting with as many people as possible. It's really about meeting the right ones that can endorse your skills, offer career advice and guidance, expand your effectiveness in your organization, maybe show you some opportunities that you weren't aware of, as well as direct you to other well-connected people. So if you know folks that you want to reconnect with or and get to know better when attending, such as clients, vendors, friend to friend, you might want to reach out a couple of weeks beforehand. So then that way, once you're at the conference together, you can meet for a cup of coffee or after the event. You want to also set a target, such as the number of people that you want to talk to or be introduced to. So think about this. If the number is 10 people, you want to make sure that you leave with the contact information of 10 people. Before the event, find out who's going to be there and perform a little bit of research. You want to have questions or topics ready. So once you've approached those people, you have something to discuss as well as share about yourself. But make sure that you look for topics of commonalities, such as maybe business interests or hobbies or pastimes, just so you can really build an authentic connection. Whether it's an alpha event or an industry symposium, you want to be sure to have your contact details available and be mindful of time. If you only have 30 to 45 minutes, of networking. And remember our goal of speaking to 10 people, that really only gives you 3 to 4 minutes to speak to each person. So you want to manage your time wisely. Do not waste 20 minutes speaking to people you already know. You want to spend that valuable time speaking to new people. You also want to familiarize yourself with the platform and the event location if it just happens to be live. So then that way you can avoid being late to a session or one of the breakout rooms. You want to go ahead and test out any features. Perfect example, StreamYard. This is the first time I'm using it, and we had a few technical difficulties going into it, but teamwork makes the dream work. And hey, you're seeing the presentation now, right? So it brings anxiety. Thankfully, I have some great people with Tim and Fred here to keep me calm. But when you're at those conferences, you don't want to be frazzled going into an event or introducing yourself because you had network issues or just couldn't figure out the platform. You definitely want to test out any features that you're unsure of. Again, so then that way you're able to participate on the big day. At most conferences, there's going to be a variety of workshops, way more than you could possibly all attend. So as you're planning your schedule, you want to look at the conference as a whole. Review all of the sessions you're interested in. So then that way you're making sure you're getting, you're able to attend a range of different topics. You're getting some skill building sessions and social events while still allowing, some downtime. And if you find yourself in a session that maybe wasn't what you thought it was going to be, by all means, leave. This is your conference experience, and you are there for whatever reason to accomplish a goal. So if that session doesn't align with what you thought it would be, because we've all been there, it's okay to step out and go into another session instead. Because you really want to, again, take advantage of the conference and get the most out of this experience. Next slide, please. When attending these events, it's really important to be a good guest because you never know who's going to be watching or listening. So be friendly and open, but also listen. Listening is just as important as sharing your credentials because it's going to help you identify those who you should be connecting with. How else would you know if they can help you with your objective if you don't listen? People are also more likely to remember you and respond well if you seem interested and respond to them in an informed and thoughtful way. So make sure you're not complacent and work the room. You're there to meet people, not hold up the wall. Think about the speakers and panelists of any conference as the people that you want to know. Don't be afraid to ask questions or hang around, even if you're the last person in a session, to say hello. Tell them that you enjoyed what they presented and exchange business cards or contact information. And if you don't get a chance to ask your question in person, you can always follow up via social media. You want to make time for the conference's social events as well, because they're a great opportunity to connect with others in a more relaxed setting. And sometimes these events are even more important than the sessions, right? So don't be afraid to linger after the event is over. You don't want to cut off a great conversation with someone just to be on time to the next session. With days of speakers and various workshops, it's a lot to take in. And it's no way that you're going to remember all of it when you get home. So you want to create a system to remember or file your contacts in along with such details as the company, maybe their contact information, maybe mutual connections, how you met, whatever the case may be. Whether you like to take your notes with pen and paper, I'm kind of old school with the pen and paper, or you want to use your laptop or your phone. Think about 3 key takeaways from each session and make note of that, along with anything that you may want to follow up on or act on, or maybe even ask the speakers. So then that way it'll jog your memory once you get home and give you specific to-dos when you return. Within a week of the event, please send a thank you or follow up to anyone that you've met, letting them know that you've enjoyed, your interaction. Set up a phone call or maybe a face-to-face lunch meeting with anyone that you specifically want to do business with or partner with, build a relationship with. This follow-up is going to help you build an effective and positive network that's going to benefit you over the course of your career. Again, I cannot stress enough the importance of following up within the week of the conference. You don't want whatever interactions that you've had to be forgotten, right? You want it to be fresh in their minds. Waiting longer than a week would really be a waste of the event and your new connections. Next slide, please. So before the event, again, review the conference program, but in addition to identifying the sessions that you want to take, you also want to identify the companies that'll be in attendance. You want to research them, each one of them, to determine what they do, as well as what they look for in a candidate. You want to visit their website so you can understand their offerings, their culture, values, maybe some of the key players, current events, or news. And most importantly, who's hiring within your field. The last thing you want to do is waste valuable time with a company where your interests, values, and skills don't align. Based on your research, you then want to rank those companies in order of importance, so that way you know which ones you want to converse with and how long. As for your resume, think of it as your professional autobiography. You want to make sure that it's current, conveys your experience, demonstrates your value, and emphasizes the results that you've been able to achieve in previous jobs. If you're able to see what opportunities are available at the conference ahead of time, you can even tailor your resume to various industries or even roles. Keep in mind, though, if you plan on having different versions of your resume, you'll need to change the focus, rephrase the responsibilities for that audience, and provide more content or maybe even more results. Make sure that it's easy to read, contains the necessary keywords from the job description, along with strong action verbs to convey your confidence and competency, because you really want to stand out along with all the other attendees. And if they get your resume, once it's been saved into their system, you want to be able to get past their applicant tracking system for future opportunities. The pandemic put a lot of stress on all of us. Some of you may have experienced illness, closed schools, even job loss over the past couple of years. And as people re-enter the workforce again, sometimes dealing with employment gaps can be somewhat intimidating. So for those of you who may have some gaps on your resume, if it's a matter of 2 to 3 months, list years for your previous positions, like 2015 to 2021, instead of April 2014 to April 2016. So that way it's still honest, but it's not as specific, right? If the gaps are longer or maybe more frequent, maybe you want to consider providing a brief note on the resume highlighting the reason for that gap of employment, and just list it like you would any other job. And then put your previous positions with the dates you held them, and for your gap, have the dates and a one-line explanation. Maybe you even use that time while you were unemployed to continue your education. And if so, kudos to you. It's hard to go back to school after being out for a while. But if you did do that, you want to go ahead and list your education just like you would your job responsibilities. So swap out the activities of a position with the courses and maybe some special projects that you worked on while you were enrolled. This description not only shows the hiring manager that you're eager to learn, but shows them what you've accomplished thus far, the skills you've acquired, and how you've managed to use your time wisely. Next slide, please. The resume is no longer the end all be all for the job search process. Your personal brand has moved online, and honestly, you're going to have to manage it to ensure that your brand is congruent with your real world brand. A complete LinkedIn profile is critical to career management, personal branding, and it makes it easier to gain connections and possible referrals in your job search. Your profile should be up to date, include a current photograph with the right information under experience that'll market you to an employer. As a former recruiter, you have no idea how many times people have applied to roles via LinkedIn, but then, and maybe I don't have their resume uploaded in our applicant tracking tool. Well, if their LinkedIn profile is blank and gives me no indication of what their skills are, what's the likelihood that I would take the time to try to contact them? Not very likely. Okay. So make sure it's up to date, and you want to make sure that you show up on our radar, because again, it could come across negatively, like you don't, lack of attention to detail, portray a negative impression, and it would deter us from reaching out if there isn't enough information listed for us to reach out and apply. Or if we're even doing a search of candidates, because we'll do a Boolean search of all of the keywords that we're looking for in the ideal candidate, right? And we could miss out on you just because your profile is vague, right? And doesn't have enough information in it. So again, make sure it's updated and lists your experience and special projects and anything else that you want to include. This is really, again, this is your online professional biography, because you can do so much more on LinkedIn than you possibly could list on your resume. Keep in mind that 70% of employers look at social profiles when researching candidates, and 85% of all jobs are filled through networking. So with percentages like that, it's not only important to have great networking skills, but it's also just important to maintain a solid social presence. You want your online presence to be positive, focused, and professional. Basically, for those of you that are on the younger side, if you wouldn't say it or show it to your grandma, don't post it. Whatever is on the internet lives forever, and you don't want it to be used against you later on. So make sure that your brand is consistent with what you show professionally. You also want to think about the job search the same way that you think about maybe a new product or a restaurant to try, and check with people that you know and respect in order to discover potential opportunities. If you see that a former coworker is now at a company that you're interested in, pick that person's brains for insights. There, even if there's an indirect connection with the company, you can use that bridge to get on the ground floor of a potential job opportunity. You have limited time to network and explore companies, so make sure you have your elevator pitch ready. Hiring managers and recruiters at these events speak to so many people, so it's up to you to stand out. And if you introduce yourself in a compelling way, it's going to allow you to have a really successful professional conversation, as well as leave them with something to remember you by. And we'll go into more depth about the elevator pitch shortly. Conferences and career fairs provide a unique opportunity to meet a lot of great people, as well as some major employers face to face, which could also lead to some interviews. Interviews at hiring events or a conference may be shorter than a traditional interview. So in addition to having an elevator pitch ready, you also want to have your brand statement ready. That's going to be a little bit longer, about 2 minutes or less, that you can share with the potential employers to give them an idea of what you have to offer. You want to think about any experience or knowledge gaps that you have on your resume and how to address them, as you can guarantee you'll be asked about it at the time of an interview. You want to also review examples of interview questions that you could be asked. So that way you can also devise thorough and concise answers as well as increase your confidence, right? Whenever you're prepared, you always feel your best. So make sure that you've reviewed some of those questions so then that way you can quickly articulate your skills. Lastly, you want to be authentic. When you're not you, you come across as not being genuine. So by being yourself, it's a lot easier to portray confidence. And it's also going to help you make a real connection with that hiring manager and not a superficial one, okay? The more you know about a company, the position, the better questions you can craft to ask a potential hiring manager. Your questions should be thoughtful, and because this is going to help you determine if this is the company or job that best fits you. So maybe some questions that you could ask is, how would you describe the responsibilities of this role? What are some of the challenges of this job? What are the most important things that I should accomplish in the next, 90 days? Or maybe what are the opportunities for advancement and growth? So let's take a moment to think about some questions, though, that you may not have thought to ask. Next slide, please. Aside from common business or role questions you have for a prospective employer, there are other factors that you really need to take into consideration before choosing a company to work for. As professionals, you should be seeking an employee-first culture because now you have more power than ever to have your optimal work environment needs met. So, what is an employee-first culture? It's one where the culture aligns to an employee's values and provides a safe, diverse, and supportive work environment. The questions shown should get you thinking about your key values and priorities and the criteria that make up an ideal workplace for you. Money isn't everything, so generate questions that intentionally interrogate whether a company is a good match. I think some of our more established professionals can attest to the fact of nothing's worse than not asking enough questions in the interview and then getting the job and finding out that it wasn't what you expected. So make sure that you're addressing all of those things in the forefront, okay? Just because you can't get that time back if you were to waste it in a role with a company that isn't going to benefit your career progression and goals. Next slide, please. Regardless of whether you're meeting, someone in person or virtually, the first impression is everything. So be fully prepared, dressed to impress, nicely groomed, because not only will it boost your confidence, but employers will take you more seriously. When answering questions, you want to be open and honest, positive, make eye contact, be natural. Project an attitude of energy and enthusiasm as well as interest. And don't ever speak negatively about your previous employers. Next slide, please. Over the course of my career, you would be so surprised to know how many people can't give a solid elevator pitch, nor can they speak about, the company that they're applying to. At conferences, you have a limited time to network. So you need to introduce yourself clearly and succinctly, okay? In an interview setting, not only is time not on your side, but you need to sell yourself in a way that packs a punch and allows you to stand out from other candidates because you don't know where you are within the hiring process, right? A simple and effective elevator pitch is a perfect way to demonstrate your professional aptitude, your strengths, and your skills. It should describe who you are professionally, display your potential, along with your accomplishments and the value that you bring with your skills and experience. Through your company research, you'll also have something of interest that you can share with a recruiter or a hiring manager at your conference. Your elevator pitch is what you use to network, Okay. Your brand statement is what you would use to speak to a prospective employer or someone that you like to do business with. So I'm a Marvel fan, and if any of you guys are, you know they are notorious for putting a spoiler or a teaser in there, right? So think about your elevator pitch as that spoiler or teaser, right? Just enough to make them interested to commit your name to memory, as well as really want to connect with you. Consider your brand statement, though, as the movie trailer. It's got a lot more oomph. And like I do, those movie, trailers are so awesome that I've been guilty and bought, advance early tickets and splurged on IMAX and 3D. So think about those extra 30 seconds to a minute and use it as your time to shine. Showcase what makes you unique and make sure you articulate how you can be of value to them. Next slide, please. So here are some examples of elevator pitches, just to give you an idea on how to craft yours. And I'll give you a few moments to just review it. But as you can see, it's really who you are, your name, right? You describe your experience, you provide some of your goals and accomplishments to give them an understanding of what you can do for them. Because at the end of the day, that's what they're looking for. What can you do for me? So be mindful of that as you're crafting your pitches. Next slide, please. Your brand statement is your personal philosophy towards work and personal life. It should highlight your strengths, establish a reputation, build trust, and communicate your unique abilities that you possess. When creating your personal brand, you need to think about the image that you want to present, okay? The messages you want to send, and what makes you different from others in your field. Think of your brand as the intersection of your talents, experience, and passions. So take a moment to review the examples shown here. Again, it tells you the goals that you want to accomplish, the skills and traits that you have that makes you special, and how it's going to help you enable you to accomplish that goal. So if you can look at these three here and you can see they sound completely different, but it gives you an understanding of what these people are about. Next slide, please. As roles and responsibilities continue to evolve, employers are focusing more on capability versus function. The way you position yourself, your experience, and your education can determine whether you're viewed as hiring material. So your resume should consist of two basic things. One, an explanation of what you can do, and two, a listing of how you've done those things in the past. Again, it should be clear and concise. Do not exceed 2 pages if you can help it. Use the margins and fonts that are going to allow you to take advantage of this limited real estate. If you have any publications or presentations, patents, whatever, addendums can be added if necessary. You also want to be honest and fact-based. Make sure that the titles and the dates are accurate. And that's why I said if you had like 2 to 3 months gaps, that you could list the years that you worked for Cisco. And then instead of listing the month and the year, right? Because it's still about accuracy. And then of course, only list the skills and activities that you've actually performed or have experience in. With so much information available online, your education, employment positions, all of that stuff can easily be verified. Not to mention, you don't know who's going to be in the interview panel should you be identified as a candidate. A hiring manager will be flexible if they know you require some development, but they'll be unwilling to move forward with you if your credibility is in question. So make sure that you're only listing the things that you have skills in. It's one thing to enhance them, right? It's another thing to full-blown lie. So again, those skills are going to be tested through the course of the job and even possibly during the interview process. So again, Be honest about what you put on your resume. You also don't know how knowledgeable or experienced the hiring manager or recruiter is when it comes to the position, the industry, the company, reviewing candidates, or anything. So your resume has to be solid. Read it as if you are looking at a stranger's resume to make sure that the person on the other end immediately sees you as a viable candidate. Next slide, please. Interviews are stressful enough. I don't know anyone who likes to go into an interview. But when you know what you're going to be asked, you can prepare accordingly, right? And as you find positions of interest, you'll need to assess the job requirements to determine a game plan that's going to guarantee success. The steps that I show here is actually what I use to organize my thoughts when preparing for an interview. But they can also be used to update your resume for new skills, as well as assist you on career development. So let's take a moment and walk through the steps. You want to review your resume and the position of interest and highlight all the skills you possess in green. For the skills that you don't have, highlight those in red. And anything that you partially have, like for example, 5 steps of a 10-step process, right? You want to think about what you partially have, or whether you're in the process of learning, and those items would be highlighted in yellow. When trying to identify a great candidate, a hiring manager will be looking at these gaps to try to whittle down the applicant pool. So they're most likely going to inquire about the requirements that you've already highlighted in yellow and red, right? The items in green are going to be easy for you to speak on because, yes, you have those skills. But the items in red and yellow will take a bit more thought. You'll need to be able to explain why you don't have those skills and what you're doing to gain them. And if you don't have those skills, focus on what you do know. Provide examples of when you've gained that experience through your tenacity and willingness to step outside of your comfort zone to learn a new skill. For your partial skills, you want to share what you do know and how you applied it. So the hiring manager doesn't think that there's a skill gap. Using, the 5 steps of a 10-step process, right? Again, they would rather know that you only know 5 of those steps than think that you don't know any of the 10, right? And it also helps them think, okay, well, if they know those 5 steps, it won't be a big deal to teach them the remaining 5. So they're more likely to give you grace if they know that you have a partial skill than a gap altogether. And even if you're working on those skills, it's still worth noting. It shows the hiring manager that you have the capacity to learn and you're dedicated to self-improvement. Technology specifically is always changing, always going through a transformation. So it always requires us to learn at new skills. So if you can show this through maybe the education that you've picked up while you've been unemployed, and maybe some extra courses that you're taking now, let them know what you're doing because, again, they want someone who has the capacity to learn, okay? You want to identify any commonalities between the job requirements and your skills from maybe an unrelated role or another industry. So you can create a transferable and soft skills list, right? And those would be highlighted in purple. Soft skills were kind of thought at one time to be, more so for customer facing roles, but employers are now putting more value on soft skills. The pandemic showed us that soft skills like resiliency, adaptability, emotional intelligence, communication, being able to collaborate cross-functionally, and creativity are just as important and needed to support hard skills. So to position yourself as a top candidate, you'll need to showcase both your hard skills and your soft skills. You want to carefully consider the requirements of your desired role and identify related examples or achievements to demonstrate those soft skill strengths. Once you've got your list of transferable and soft skills together, compare those to the items in red and yellow so you can see where you can apply them. So that way, when you're asked about your skill gaps, you can reference those soft or transferable skills and explain how they relate to the desired, position. If you can't apply them, that's when you can change the narrative, right? And downplay the gaps, highlight those transferable or soft skills to remind the hiring manager why they called you into the interview in the first place. So again, skills you possess in green, skills you don't possess in red, skills you partially have in yellow, and then skills that would be an asset to the company, those are going to be in purple. And then as they're asking questions about the items that you've highlighted in red and yellow, you can use the purple ones to either give them examples on how you have those skills and why you'd be the perfect fit for the job. And again, if you can't plug those skills in, you can change the narrative when they're asking you about the negative things and throw in the positives from the transferable and soft skills, again, to remind them why they were interested in you in the first place. When you're using this method to tailor your resume for different roles, you're going to need to restructure the activities in order of relevance. So then that way they align to what's on the job description, right? As well as meet the needs of the audience. You also want to add the keywords to your resume for those different jobs, again, so that way you can make it through the application tracking system. And if you're using it, this exercise for professional development, and say, for example, you are a junior software specialist and you want to be a senior software specialist, right? Pull up the job description for the senior software specialist and look at what the job requirements are. Think about the skills that you currently have, the ones that you partially have, and the ones that you don't have. And the items in yellow and red are the ones that you need to either gain or further develop. So then that way you're ready to move into that senior software engineer role. So hopefully that made some sense. And again, we're going to take questions at the end of this, but this was just my way of just organizing my thoughts. So then that way when I go into an interview, I feel a little bit more confident. Next slide, please. Here's a list of some of the programs that we have here at Cisco. We're always transforming how people in business and the world connect. And the programs that we offer here for university and professional talent is one way that we're trying to power an inclusive future. Because we want to make sure that up and coming and untapped talent have an avenue to succeed. If you're interested in any of these programs, you can visit our career site at jobs.cisco.com to learn more. Next slide. At Cisco, we value our employees and our partners. We know that they are our strengths. Together, we have the experience to help our customers solve their biggest business challenges. We have a track record for identifying and capturing market transitions, and we understand the complexity across customer segments. We also know how to help our customers navigate through market and technology transitions to take advantage of change. We appreciate our customers for their loyalty, but we love our employees even more because they stay with us and because they get involved with helping us make the world and the industry a better place. Cisco's culture prioritizes employee well-being, inclusion, giving back, ingenuity, and empathy. The awards you see here are just a few of the accolades that we've received over the past 25 years. And they further prove that when you take care of your employees, not only does it result in the best culture, but it breeds innovation, proving that anything really is possible. Whether it's solving customer problems, global relief, sustainability, education, fighting social injustice, or community reach out, we work out as a team. So as we connect the unconnected, you can trust that together We'll lead with passion and value for our customers, for Cisco, and the communities around the world. So I think it's time for some of you to check us out if you haven't already done so. We're always looking for talented, bold individuals who are passionate and creative and want to make the world a better place. So come be a part of our inclusive future. We'd love to have you. You can visit our career site at jobs.cisco.com to review our current openings. And now I'll turn it over for some Q&A. Next slide. So anyone have any questions about what we've discussed today?
Looks like we're pretty quiet. So looking through the comments, I see the feedback has been there's great content, and we will share those slides at a later date, so you can have access to this. See, Dr. Sammy Scales asks, is there room for educators in the company? So
Yes.
what I will tell you is Dr. Scales, there are a plethora of different backgrounds at Cisco. I mean, I work right next to an English major, and they are able to bring their talents and able to bring their skills. So we are a totally inclusive company. We thrive on diversity, and that's diversity, not only gender or ethnic diversity, but different skill sets and experiences for Cisco to thrive in the market and meet our customer needs. So yeah, definitely check out the website, see if there are any skills that align that you can transfer. And you can contact me directly if you applied for a particular role, and then we can ensure that that gets flagged and you can be seen.
And I would also add, I think you said Dr. Sam was his name.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Scales, yep.
Oh, Dr. Scales, my apologies. Like Fred said, as an educator, you have this interesting background that can allow you to do a multitude of different things. You have insanely wonderful customer facing skills, right? Dealing with students and dealing with the parents, right? So you can leverage that into a customer facing role. I've heard of several people from education going into sales, but then you also have that expertise of guiding and training others. So we have learning and development where you could help create curriculums, where you could train other or jobs that you could even train others with technical skills, or there's just so much that you can do in education at Cisco. So definitely think about the areas that you would be interested in, and I would put your skills in the keyword section, and then that's gonna bring up the roles that best align to your personal skill set. But like Fred said, there's so many different avenues that someone in education can go through. But as I mentioned in the presentation, you want to make sure that if you're thinking about going into corporate America, whether it's IT, whatever it is, that you have tailored your activities for that audience. So you have put together, you've crafted curriculum, right? You've designed training, put it in a way that that person reading your resume would say, oh, Dr. Scales fits this role perfectly. And align it to how it's written in the job description to help give you an idea of the verbiage, as well as the keywords that you need to integrate into your resume to be seen as a contender. Anyone else?
While we wait, Darren, is there anything you want to add to the conversation while we're waiting for the next person to ask a question?
I think Lori did an excellent job of outlining, both the things that candidates need to think about and the ways that they can best prepare themselves, for the future. So, the only thing, that I would add is be flexible as you think about what your next career opportunities are going to be, because sometimes opportunities can take you in a direction that you did not anticipate previously. And so if you're open and flexible, you can take advantage of things that you may not have been aware of, but that would be a launching pad for, accelerated growth in your career opportunities. So, as you think about, attending different conferences and different events, be very open-minded, listen to the people that you meet as you go through these networking meetings and conversations that Lori talked about, and really think about whether or not your skill sets and your passions could in fact make you a great fit or a great candidate for some of these opportunities that are out there and some of these companies that are recruiting, especially ours.
I see a question in here what they can do differently if they land interviews but seldom get job offers. Ask for feedback.
Yep.
If you've been able to build a good rapport with that recruiter, ask them, hey, I made it to round 2 of the interview process. Everything seemed to be going, well. Can you offer any feedback? Honestly, it could be timing. You could have been the best person, but they've had the job requisition open for so long that they've already interviewed 50 candidates and you're candidate 51, and they've identified the main players. Maybe your start date isn't soon enough. There's various reasons that go along with it. But what you can do is ask for feedback. And if it's been given to them, they'll provide it. I know I've provided it when I've been able to see, feedback notes and things like that. I've shared it. And then maybe they'll offer some tips on how you could do a little bit better in the interview process. What you could also do is maybe practice a little bit more, right? Maybe it was a little bit of nerves. Maybe it was body language. I would, just run through it and actually do it via WebEx, or I'm not going to say the other people's name because I'm Cisco, but, maybe practice it over, a virtual system so you can see how you come across. I had a gentleman that I knew was a brilliant engineer applied to a role on another team, and I was pushing for him. He went to that interview like this. What does this say?
Lack of confidence.
He can't. One manager took it as him being bored. The other manager took it as him being arrogant. Neither of which this gentleman was. So practice in front of a mirror, practice in front of your friends, answer questions, really look at your resume and see how you can expand upon things better. There's a plethora of interview questions available online. Go through and practice behavioral ones because they're the worst and they're the hardest. And if you can get through those, you'll kill any interview. Because those are the ones where the employers they ask you for an example of something that you've done in the past as an indication of how you will handle things in the future. So you want to also, knowing that those questions are typically asked, think about really good stories that show you in a positive light, where maybe you had a problem, maybe you caused the problem, because we've all done that. But sometimes that's the best way to learn, and how you solved the problem, how you never did it again, and how you learned from it, and maybe did something phenomenal with that new information because you've been able to get past that problem. You want to showcase yourself in the best light. So maybe it just falls down to practice. And again, it could be timing. But if those interviews were recent, see if you can get some feedback and work on the suggestions that they also provide as well. Is there room for people over 60 in finance? Yeah. Come on down. Let's put it this way. One of my favorite managers fought in Vietnam. I'm going to leave that right there. Okay. So yes, there's plenty of room for people 65 and over at Cisco in finance and in any other department.
Awesome. So I think that was the last question. We are probably in our time box. So I want to thank everyone for joining and participating. We welcome your feedback. We thank you for your engagement. As we indicated, we will share these slides in the next few days so that you can have them for your reference. If you're attending a convention in the next month or two, just keep these things in mind and show up as your best authentic self. So once again, on the behalf of Cisco, on the behalf of Lori, on the behalf of Darren, thank you for joining us tonight, and we look forward to connecting with you in the future.
Thank you so much, everyone.